Hello, my name is Mr. Abbott, and welcome to today's lesson on creating compound sentences. I'm going to talk about the three ways you can use to combine sentences together. It's essential that you first understand what a complete sentence looks like before moving on to compound sentences. So, if you haven't completed part one of my grammar series and learned what's in a complete sentence and find the ability to find the verb and subject, I'd recommend doing that lesson first. But if you know that, it's time to move on to why we compound and how we compound. And so here's the first question. Do you know when you've completed a complete sentence in English, right? And so what are you looking for? You're looking for three things. Can you name those three things that will show you whether or not you have a complete sentence? You're looking for a subject, a predicate with a verb, and a complete idea. Makes a complete thought. If you can identify those things and identify complete sentences, then you are probably ready to move on to compound sentences. Once again, subject, predicate, makes a complete thought. So, simple sentences are what we've been learning so far. They have a subject, a predicate, and make a complete thought. They begin with a capital letter and end with a period, right? Or some other punctuation, such as an exclamation point or a question mark. But they are all just simple. They have one subject, one predicate, and then make a complete thought. So, for example, he wrote a simple sentence, or she crafted three simple sentences to make a paragraph. Both of these are simple sentences. They're just one sentence together, right? One clause. However, when we combine two or more simple sentences into one larger sentence, we have what's called a compound sentence. And let's say you have something like this, right? You're writing a story and you say Marcus was riding his bike, period. Joanna was on her skateboard. This is absolutely grammatically correct, and nobody will ever be able to mark you down for this, right? It's just fine writing like this, but the sentences read in a choppy, broken up way, and it makes it slightly, ever so slightly harder for your reader to follow what you're saying. And so here I have a picture that kind of this is why we compound sentences, right? I want you to get into this idea of like friction, right? When they test cars, they see how much resistance the car has while it's driving. They put it in these air tunnels and let the air flow over it in little like streams of smoke or some kind of vapor to see how the air is flowing around it, right? And the issue with writing, and the reason why we're still writing and we're learning how to write more, is we want our writing to not have a lot of drag on our audience, right? And so most students who are in high school, you can write and you can communicate with your audience. The problem is your writing is extremely exhausting, right? It has a lot of drag. It's like a car with almost no aerodynamics. It's really hard for your reader. Your reader has to put a lot of extra effort into deciphering what you're saying. And really what you need to learn is the tips and techniques that are going to make your writing more aerodynamic. So that way your reader can read it without getting exhausted, right? And I find this sometimes I'll be reading student essays, and then when I go to take a break, I go and read something else. And it occurred to me one time, I'm like, this is ridiculous. I took a break from reading to go read other things, and that's when I realized it's not that I need a break from reading. I just need a break from the kind of high effort reading that's required when reading student writing, because the students oftentimes don't know how to write in a way that really helps their reader read easily. And so why compound sentences? It makes things more smooth, right? And so this sentence we had before would read more smoothly if we said Marcus was riding his bike, comma, but Joanna was on her skateboard. It connects the two sentences together and gives the reader an idea of why they're connected and how they relate to each other, right? The thing that makes the reading harder is when the reader needs to figure out how they're related itself. But when we put this word but in here, now we're telling the reader how they're related. So it's less work they need to do. It's more aerodynamic, right? And so let's take a look at the first way to combine sentences together. First, you have to know your fanboys, right? And so hopefully you've learned these in previous classes. If not, there's 7 words you need to know here. They are for, and, nor, but, or, yet, and so. And so these are the fanboys. They're also known as coordinating conjunctions. The other thing you need is a comma. And so in the middle of the sentence, I put a comma. So commas create a slight pause that can be used to separate phrases from sentences, dependent clauses, and they can connect complete sentences, but only with help. A comma is not strong enough to connect two complete sentences on its own. It needs something else to help it. And what does it need? It needs one of those fanboys. And so this is a type 1, what I refer to as type 1, compound sentence. And it uses a comma and a coordinating conjunction or a fanboy to join two clauses together, right? And so here we have the sentence, I like pasta, comma, and I like lasagna. So this is a complete sentence here, I like pasta, and I like lasagna. This is a complete sentence over here. And so this comma and are working together to combine these two complete sentences. So anytime you see this, if you see a comma and a coordinating conjunction, you should know that what's on the left of it is a complete sentence and what's on the right of it should be a complete sentence. And if it's not, you're not quite using it correctly, right? And so Horace wasn't at school, comma, but he wasn't home either. Horace wasn't at school is a complete sentence. He wasn't home either is a complete sentence, right? And so this comma and coordinating conjunction is connecting two complete sentences together. And so when we do this, what we're doing is just working on making our writing show the relationship between things that are connected, right? And so we make this just by taking an independent clause, adding a comma, a coordinating conjunction, and then another independent clause. And when I say independent clause, you can think of it as sentences as well. Excuse me, that's fine. So here are some examples. I bought Horace a candy bar, comma, 4, he was feeling hungry. I hit the ball, comma, and Susie caught it. Penelope doesn't like mango, comma, nor does she like guava. And I go through and I use each of the fanboys here. So you can see in each one, there's a comma and a fanboy, comma followed by fanboy, and then an independent clause or complete sentence on each side. To the right, there should be a complete sentence. On the left, there should be a complete sentence, right? So if this is in the middle of two things, to the left, or to the right and to the left should be complete sentences. This is what these are used for. Now, here's where students tend to get confused with this, right? And so what will happen is students start seeing and or, and they'll be like, oh, it's a fanboy. I need to put a comma before it. But that's only when it's connecting complete sentences. Sometimes that fanboy is connecting other things besides complete sentences. And so the and can connect subjects, right? Martha and Sue love baseball, right? And so if we put a comma here, it would mean that Martha is a complete sentence, but Martha is not a complete sentence. So this and is not connecting complete sentences. It's connecting subjects. Here, the and is connecting two verbs, right? It's telling two things in the story. If we look at this side, plays baseball, that's not really a complete sentence. Martha loves could be a complete sentence, but this side on the right is not a complete sentence. Here, Martha loves baseball. And tennis, it's connecting objects. Tennis is not a complete sentence, so we don't need a comma here. But if we look at the bottom, Martha loves baseball, comma, and Sue loves tennis. Here, the and is connecting complete sentences. On the left is a complete sentence, and on the right is a complete sentence. And so anytime you see an and or, and you're like, do I need a comma with this? You have to ask yourself, is it connecting complete sentences? Is the thing that's on the left a complete sentence or an independent clause? And is the thing that's on the right a complete sentence or independent clause? And so here's the review. What was the first way I showed you to combine two sentences? Do you remember? It is using a comma and a coordinating conjunction to combine two sentences. This is the first of 3 ways I will show you to combine sentences together. Now would be a good time to practice. Pause this video and log into IXL to practice identifying coordinating conjunction and creating compound sentences. These assignments will help you practice this concept more thoroughly. Feel free to resume this video when you are done with your practice. Moving on. The second type of compound sentence, using a semicolon. And so, review. What was the first type of compound sentence? How do you make it? Do you know? Can you answer that question off the top of your head? If not, you may want to go back and review and do the assignment. If you just watched the video through the assignment, you didn't do the assignment, you don't remember, you may want to review that now. But the answer is the first way to compound a sentence is using a comma and a coordinating conjunction, also known as a fanboy. Now, in order to understand this next portion, you need to know what a semicolon is. Now, a semicolon is this unit of punctuation, most commonly used to make winky face emojis, right? But it looks like this. It creates a moderate pause that's used to separate complete sentences or independent clauses. And so that's really what the second type of compound sentence is. You can use a semicolon to join two closely related independent clauses. So you can say, I like pasta, semicolon, pasta is delicious. Horace wasn't at school, semicolon, I saw him at the mall. And so what this does is instead of using a period, which is a full stop, the semicolon gives your reader the idea, like, listen, what's coming next is going to be related to what I just said, just in general, right? And so it really kind of helps your reader. And sometimes you have two sentences that are combined and you don't need an and or a but or a so. You just need them to be a little bit connected. And that's where a semicolon comes in. This is the one that's almost so easy, it's ridiculous. Because in any case where you have two sentences, as long as they're talking about the same thing, you can use a semicolon instead of a period. It's a very useful piece of punctuation once you know it. And so it's really simple to make too. You have an independent clause, a semicolon plus an independent clause, right? Or a sentence plus a semicolon plus another sentence, right? And so this is the second way to combine sentences together. And so that was a quick lesson. I would recommend taking a moment to pause and practice this item on IXL. There should be a link available to you in the video slides lesson. Take a few minutes, pause this lesson, and return when you are ready. Welcome back. Hopefully you paused this and practiced. Hopefully you're not just watching this video all the way through. Now, if you really want an assignment that will help you practice this, it's good to practice on IXL, but you have to remember the whole point of learning this is to practice your actual writing. And so an assignment that you could do to practice this is write 7 sentences that are compounded using type 1 and type 2 connections. You may not use a period until the very end after all 7 sentences or all 7 independent clauses have been written. All 7 sentences must be perfectly connected to be accepted and use exactly 2 semicolons. This would be your challenge. Can you do this? Can you keep writing sentences and sentences? Theoretically, you could make an entire novel that's just one compound sentence. It wouldn't be good writing, but you could do it and it would be grammatically correct. So feel free to take a minute and pause this if you'd like a chance to practice your writing by hand. Once again, me teaching it to you is only going to be half the battle. This is going to be learned by you practicing. If you're just watching these videos without practicing, you are not learning the content. And then type 3 compound sentence. This is what I call the formal conjunction because it always sounds very formal when you're writing it. You need to know what a conjunctive adverb is. Some grammar programs will refer to them as thamos, which refers to the major ones, which are therefore, however, although, meanwhile, otherwise. There's more, such as nevertheless, moreover, additionally, first, finally, in comparison, in fact. There's a whole list. There's more conjunctive adverbs than what's on this. But just know that they're typically very formal. And you might have teachers who are like, in your past, who have said, never start a sentence with and, right? And you're like, but I want to start a sentence with and. Well, that's okay. Because instead of saying and, you could say additionally, right? And nobody will ever complain with you starting a sentence, right? You shouldn't start a sentence with but you could start a sentence with however. And it makes these are really formal and they're a good way to kind of, if you're in one of those positions where you want to start a sentence with and or but you've been told you shouldn't do that, you can use a conjunctive adverb instead. They will directly replace it and make your writing sound more formal. And so this is a type 3 compound sentence. And this one uses a semicolon, a conjunctive adverb, and a comma to join 2 independent clauses, right? And so it looks something like this. I like pasta, semicolon. However, comma, I will order lasagna. Horace wasn't at school, semicolon, although, comma, he had a doctor's appointment. And so it's an independent clause plus a semicolon, plus a conjunctive adverb, plus a comma. And this is the final way to combine sentences together. Really, these three options are the only ways that we combine sentences together in English. If you learn all three of these methods, you know all the ways that are grammatically correct to join sentences together. And so, this is still technically correct. And if you use a period instead of a semicolon and kind of end the sentence and then begin a new one with the conjunctive adverb, this is also grammatically correct, right? You don't have to do a semicolon. So the difference would be the period would be a harder stop and it would create more of a division between what you said here on the left and what you say on the right. And the semicolon would be a less of a pause and it would just keep the ideas flowing together, but both are grammatically correct. And so once again, now is the time to practice this. There's an assignment on IXL. You can click the link in the video slides to go directly to it. I would recommend practicing all three. These are really useful, one of the most common ways that you can avoid run-on sentences and improve your grammar in your writing. Good luck with your practice, and remember, you must practice these concepts to learn them. Watching this video is not enough. And so good luck, and if you have questions, feel free to ask me about them in class. I'll see you all later.